from the torture, and the mutilation is so much. The actual V2K, which is audible voices bouncing off my skull using the auditory microwave effect. And I think I'm going to go through that next since I'm doing this video. The psychological trauma of that what's the word I'm looking for? I'm kind of trying to think of words here, but it's not working. It translates into physical trauma for my mind. Like, it's just so much for my mind to take. My mind is so tired, and then it's da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Turn it off. This is evil. No, nobody cares about him. I'm not playing anymore. So the guy's saying that, torch him, turn it up. Things like that, like phrases like that. And they'll talk back and forth so that it does sound like somebody could be still doing it if they didn't say things over and over. So it does not sound like recorded stuff. It really does sound like somebody is saying it. But since they are saying things over and over, and there's a pattern, I'm aware that it is on an automated roll. But the dangerous, deadly thing here is that it does sound so much like somebody is actually there saying it. Now, sometimes they do interject things live, like, I listen to things like music that they don't really like. It doesn't go along with their experiment or their remote neural manipulation, their entrainment, and they'll start saying, "We're gonna kill you." We're gonna kill you, or you think you're so smart. I think that one they kind of interject, or they do one thing. I'll hear the guy say, "It's the story of my life. It's the story of my life," and they'll say, "It's the story of your life." He'll say both of those phrases. Those things also, like the woman will say, like, "I'm leaving, I'm leaving." Those things also are meant to be in this narrative, so surveillance role-playing narrative, but it's also meant to be neuro-linguistic programming and psychic driving on me. So they use specific phrases that are supposed to cause anxiety or feelings in me, like like when the woman says, "I'm leaving." It's supposed to make me think I'm leaving. It's supposed to be kind of projected onto me. This is very, very dangerous, very real stuff, guys. So, and I'm talking to non-TIs. I know TIs know how utterly, utterly dangerous, just new levels of horror, new levels of atrocity in the world. I mean, just new levels where new terms are going to have to come up with what it's doing to people on a psychological level and on a post-traumatic stress level, because it's not just post-traumatic stress where you've experienced trauma, it's post-traumatic stress ongoing, and there is an actual term for that. I think it's actually like ongoing post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's what TIs experience on a daily basis, this post-traumatic stress disorder that never stops. The trauma, the torture, the psychological torture never stops. Because they do want people, they want to, basically walk people to their deaths or their suicides. That's one of the goals of this, to see what they can get people to do, see if they can get them to be violent, blah, blah, blah. All that horribly satanic stuff that people just see as a mission now because their heads are so fucking far up their asses, and they've really given themselves over. They've shut their minds off. They're probably being mind controlled, most of the way too, and they've shut their minds off. They stop making decisions, and they're like, this is just how it is now. And somebody said, I think it was, Romola D on one of the Techno Crime Fighters forums, one of the most recent ones. She made a very good point about, how the economy is very bad. And it's been so for many years, for since 2000. I mean, well, we've had problems with the economy all along the way, but just kind of stabilized horrible economy since about 2000. And what's happened is that all these defense sector jobs, like these third-party contractors, DoD, security jobs, the defense sector has really bolstered itself. So people are now taking these jobs because This kind of stuff that they're doing to target individuals is money out of thin air. It's taxpayers' dollars too. It's taxpayers' dollars, money that's disappeared, like trillions of dollars in America that just disappear and they don't know where it went. But also, the private banks, manufacture money for this. So there's so much money. There's so much money to be made to collect data for these directed energy weapon systems, for data on the brain that they're collecting from actually interacting with the brain and the nervous system with directed energy weapon systems, and all that money's kind of people, investors like manufacturers are chipping in, taxpayers, who don't know where their money's going is chipping in, black budget for the DoD, and then if they need some more money, then it's just they just make it, the Federal Reserve just prints the money out of thin air. So there's just an endless funnel of money coming in. So people want these jobs, even though it's murdering citizens and torturing citizens or harassing citizens or illegally surveilling women and children. The jobs are pretty stable. So it's not like it's not like the rest of the economy, which is pretty unstable. And small businesses, it's very hard for small businesses because times are real tough for everybody. These defense industry jobs, these security industry jobs are very stable. And so people are saying, well, got to do what you got to do. And then they're murdering their neighbors or surveilling women and children, like surveilling children or experimenting on children using directed energy weapons technologies. It's very, very sick. The system is sick, and it's been socially engineered and directed to this sickness. Make no mistake. Make no mistake that this, our society going this way, where people, maybe some of the people are just, pure psychopaths. I'll say that's definitely true. But a lot of desperate people who are gang stalking, who aren't completely evil, but they're like, well, I can gang stalk this person because I heard a lie about them, and it's stable income, or supplemental income. It seems very enticing to them, So we've been kind of corralled into this type of horrible satanic behavior, and people are just like, well, that's how we put food on the table. And then some families are being tortured and mutilated so bad and split up so bad that they can barely, and they only work honest jobs. They would never do this, and they're suffering. So I'm kind of going all over the place. Kind of wanted to give a shout out and just really respect what Richard Burton is doing. Maybe talk about my V2K a little bit more. It's excruciating. I sometimes feel like, I'm tortured very badly. My body's mutilated, and it would be a hard life. But I sometimes wish, I sometimes think without the voice to skull chatterbox 24 hours a day, with them like injecting things in real time that are audible, and I still get the synthetic telepathy. I still get the inner voice manipulation too on top of that, and then remote neural manipulation with actual frequencies that are injecting visuals into my head and things like that, emotions and things like that. So I get audible voices that seem like, right now it sounds like the conversation is coming from like that wall, that left wall. So it sounds like there are people in that wall and it's bouncing to my head. So it's not like actually inside of my head. It's like a woman. And just right now, sometimes they'll do a voice modification of like a woman who is very, she's like out of sorts. She's scared about all this, and she's like, you're cooking him. But it's one of them, and they're using voice modification to actually sound like a woman who is very upset about all this, and that's to mimic when I was in that house. There was the ex-army guy and his wife, and it sounded, and I think she really might have been on some ground V2K and really was very, very upset about it all, but she's no longer involved at all. It may have been voice modification, of their voices off their phones, or they volunteered their voices for this. I'm not sure, but that's kind of, they've kept that going. But my attackers seem to know that I realized that that woman's not here anymore, and that nobody's really crying or like really upset on there. But they still use it because it evokes, like, a woman who is very emotional and very scared evokes a lot of emotion in me. So they know that that will still evoke emotion in me, even if intellectually I know that's not really happening. So this stuff really gets, I'm kind of just scratching the surface on this video and just kind of doing an update, but it gets very, very psychologically scary, like psychologically breaking new barriers of new psychological traumas that they'll have to come up with, very new terms for what this is doing to people's minds. I did want to, with the last 5 minutes or the last 4 minutes of this, because I think I'm going to end it on 30 minutes, I wanted to say, like, I know people use the term mind control, or I use the term mind direction a lot. And I wanted to say, like, I think that a better term, like, if you know that this stuff's happening, like you hear Brian to talk about remote neural manipulation and quenching, and I can't remember the term he uses for basically memory. Basically just knowing your thoughts apart from anything that they're injecting with frequencies, like any kind of visuals or inner voice, synthetic telepathy stuff, which they can do, EMF signals through your throat and your jaw, imperceptible, and then you get them out in your inner voice, or subliminal V2K. He talks about, and I wish I could remember the term because it's such an easy term, but I'm having a hard time tonight. But my point is that when you know this stuff is going on, you know that you're being toyed around with and traumatized and remote neural manipulated, it really becomes mind rape. Mind rape seems to be a better term than mind direction or mind control. Now, I think that if you don't know this stuff is going on, and you don't know the tactics of remote neural manipulation, voice to skull, synthetic telepathy, basically inner voice induction, I guess you could call it, then I think you'd be talking about mind direction and mind control. When somebody, they could inject a thought or a feeling or a visual, and that person doesn't know about this technology at all, then that could be mind controlling, or an urge or something like that. Now, when like when you're a targeted individual who's studied this stuff and you know what they're doing, you know the tactics, remote neural manipulation, they're going to try and meddle with your emotions. They're going to try and, actually, and I don't know if inject thought is the right term. We need to come up with terms that are better for the science of it, because it's really a frequency. It's like entrainment, where then they can, basically, a thought is an electrical signal. They send an electrical signal, which turns out to be a visual in your visual space. But my point is that, I think with people who know that's going on, a better term that I was just thinking of when I woke up, because it was hard, is mind rape. Because you know that some things, when they're trying to inject something, a feeling or an urge or a visual, that it's not yours, and you're fighting it. You're fighting to and you're like, that's not mine, that's them, that's my attackers doing it. So I think mind rape for people who know what's going on is a better term. And that's kind of just a random thought about it. But for somebody who doesn't know about the technology at all, I could see talking about mind control and mind direction. Target individuals who don't know all the tactics, then mind direction, mind control might be better terms. But for me, it's really, and for a lot of targeted individuals, I know a lot of you guys watching, y'all know what's happening to you. It becomes mind rape, and not really mind control, So I was just thinking about that. But leave your comments, guys. I'm getting to about 30 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Just some random thoughts. I didn't really get to everything that I wanted to talk about, because my thoughts are just everywhere. They really creamed me last night. But I'm gonna try and I may do some more videos even today on the history of stuff like this. Guys behind us, guys. I'll see you on the next one.